Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are. Whether you're driving to work, studying English, cleaning your house, going for a walk, or simply relaxing, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with us. Today's episode is about something that almost everyone experiences at least once in life: your first job interview. A first interview can be exciting, stressful, scary, and even a little funny when you look back at it years later. Today we're going to share our experiences, talk about common interview questions, discuss mistakes people make, and give you some useful tips that can help you feel more confident. And, as always, I'm joined by my friend Alex.
Hi everyone. I'm really excited about today's topic because I think every single person remembers their first interview. Even if you've had 10 or 20 interviews since then, you'll probably never forget the very first one.
That's true. I think the first interview is special because it's the first time someone is evaluating you professionally. You're trying to make a good first impression, but at the same time you're probably nervous because you don't know exactly what will happen. So, Alex, let's start with the obvious question. Do you remember your first job interview?
Absolutely. I remember almost every detail. I was 19 years old and I wanted to earn my own money because I didn't want to depend on my parents anymore. I found a job advertisement for a sales assistant at a small electronics store. I sent my resume, and a few days later they called me. When I answered the phone and they said they wanted to interview me, I was excited. But as soon as I hung up, I became terrified. I started thinking, what if they ask me something I don't know? What if I say something stupid? What if I don't get the job?
I think that's exactly what most people think before their first interview. Sometimes our imagination creates problems that don't even exist. We spend days worrying about things that never happen.
Exactly. The night before the interview I prepared everything. I ironed my clothes. I polished my shoes. I printed extra copies of my resume. I even searched online for top 20 interview questions. Then I practiced answering them in front of the mirror. I must have practiced for almost 2 hours.
Wow. You were definitely prepared. Did it help?
Well, yes and no. It helped because I felt more organized. But when I actually entered the interview room, I forgot half of what I had practiced.
That always happens. You spend hours preparing a perfect answer, and then your brain suddenly decides to disappear.
Exactly. The interviewer smiled and said, "Good morning. Please have a seat." He looked friendly, but I was still nervous. Then he asked the classic question. "Tell me about yourself." I had practiced that answer at least 50 times. But when he asked me, my mind went completely blank. There were probably 5 seconds of silence. It felt like 5 hours. Finally, I smiled and said, "Well, my name is Alex." It wasn't a great start.
Honestly, I think we've all had moments like that. People think interviewers expect perfection. But they don't. They're talking to human beings, not robots. Feeling nervous is completely normal.
Exactly. After that first question, I started relaxing. The interviewer asked about my hobbies. He asked what I studied. He asked why I wanted the job. Little by little, it felt less like an interview and more like a conversation. That's when I realized something important. Interviewers aren't trying to make your life difficult. Most of them simply want to know who you are.
I completely agree. Sometimes people imagine interviews as an interrogation. But many companies are simply looking for someone who's responsible, honest, willing to learn, and easy to work with. Technical skills can often be taught. A good attitude is much harder to teach.
That's so true. One question that surprised me was, "What would your friends say about you?" I wasn't expecting that. I had never thought about it before. So I answered honestly. I said they would probably describe me as responsible, patient, and someone who likes helping others.
That's actually a great answer. I remember one question from my first interview that completely confused me. The interviewer asked, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And honestly, I had absolutely no idea. At that time, I was just hoping someone would give me my first job. 5 years felt like forever.
Exactly. When you're young, you're still discovering what you enjoy. It's okay not to have every detail of your future planned. What's important is showing that you're motivated to grow.
Another thing many people worry about is making mistakes. Maybe they forget a word. Maybe they answer too quickly. Maybe they speak too slowly. Maybe they accidentally say something awkward. But here's the truth. Nobody has a perfect interview. Even experienced professionals make mistakes.
Definitely. One funny thing happened during my interview. The interviewer offered me a cup of coffee. I was so nervous that when I picked up the cup, I almost spilled it on the table. Luckily, nothing happened. But inside my head I was thinking, please don't let me drop this coffee.
That's actually funny. Stress makes people do strange things. I've heard stories about people walking into the wrong office. Others forget the interviewer's name 5 seconds after hearing it. Some even arrive on the wrong day.
Exactly. And that's why it's important not to be too hard on yourself. Everyone gets nervous. The interviewer probably knows you're nervous too. They're not expecting perfection. They're expecting honesty and professionalism.
Let's talk about preparation. What advice would you give someone who's going to have their first interview tomorrow?
First, research the company. Know what they do. Read about their products or services. Second, prepare answers to common questions. Third, arrive early. Being 10 or 15 minutes early is much better than arriving late. Fourth, dress appropriately. You don't always need an expensive suit, but you should look clean and professional. And finally, smile. A genuine smile creates a positive first impression.
Those are excellent tips. I'd also add something very important. Listen carefully. Sometimes people are so focused on giving the perfect answer that they don't actually listen to the question. Take your time. It's okay to pause for a few seconds before answering. You don't have to respond immediately.
Exactly. Another thing is body language. Sit up straight. Make eye contact. Don't cross your arms. Shake hands confidently if it's appropriate. These small details show confidence even when you're feeling nervous inside.
Let's talk about what happened after your interview. Did you get the job?
Actually, no. A few days later they thanked me for my time but said they had chosen another candidate. At first I felt disappointed. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough. But later I realized something. That interview wasn't a failure. It was practice. Because of that experience, my second interview went much better. Then my third interview was even easier. Eventually, I got a job. If I had given up after the first rejection, I would have missed many opportunities.
That's such an important lesson. Sometimes people think one rejection defines their future. It doesn't. Every successful person has heard no many times. The difference is that successful people keep trying.
Exactly. Confidence doesn't magically appear one day. Confidence grows every time you face something that scares you. Every interview teaches you something new. Maybe you learn how to answer better. Maybe you improve your communication. Maybe you simply become less nervous. Every experience has value.
And if you're listening today and you're preparing for your first interview, here's our message for you. Don't wait until you feel completely ready. Most people never feel completely ready. Prepare as much as you can. Believe in yourself. Be honest. Be respectful. Show your willingness to learn. That's often much more valuable than having years of experience.
And remember, if your interview is in English, don't panic. You don't need to use difficult vocabulary. Simple English spoken clearly is much better than complicated English that you don't fully understand. Speak slowly. Take your time. Don't worry about making small grammar mistakes. Communication is always more important than perfection.
Exactly. Learning English is a journey. Every conversation, every interview, and every mistake helps you become more confident. Maybe your first interview won't be perfect. Maybe your second won't be either. But every step brings you closer to your goals. That's often much more valuable than having years of experience.
Never let fear stop you from applying for a job you really want. Sometimes the opportunity that changes your life begins with one interview. Communication is always more important than perfection.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining me today, Alex. That's often much more valuable than having years of experience.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I hope everyone listening feels more confident before their next interview.
And thank you to all of you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share it with a friend who's getting ready for their first job interview. Keep practicing your English every day, believe in yourself, and remember, every professional had a first interview. We'll see you in the next episode.
I hope today's story inspired you to try something new while improving your English. Thanks for listening, and remember, every day is a new chance to learn. See you in the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on my social media such as TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Goodbye.